Hello, I'm Sylvia Traymore-Morrison, and I am absolutely delighted to be here today because I'm sitting with not only a dear friend who I've been knowing since I was maybe 12 or 13 years old, but I'm sitting with one of the most iconic, legendary musicians in the country. A lot of you may know him as Ted Carpenter. I know him as Skeet. We call him Hakeem sometimes. He's an amazing singer and, more importantly, songwriter. And he's here today. And I get to ask him a lot of questions. I'm so excited. What's up, Ted?
As I am too.
How you been?
Everything's good.
So I hear you have been writing a lot of songs because...
Well, I'm writing a lot of songs because I'm preparing for my debut solo project.
Ooh,
So this is my first excursion, if you will, away from the group that you normally associate me with, which is Father's Children. But I'm excited about the project.
Good for you. You know, when you first told me about this interview today, and I had questions in my mind that I wanted to ask you myself. So if you don't mind, I would like to incorporate the questions that I have.
Absolutely. Feel free.
Even though I've been knowing you forever, I know a lot of answers to Father's Children, The Dreams, Ted Hakeem Carpenter's history. But here's something that I don't know that I think people would really, really be interested in learning. When was your very first romance with music?
Well, that's a good question. I wasn't quite ready for that one, but let me put it like this. I think my first romance or falling in love with the music might be as a young kid listening to my mom sing around the house. She wasn't a singer.
Okay.
She was melodic, but she wasn't a singer. And I think that's my first, I guess, liking or being drawn to being musical. And then later, in elementary school, so, of course, I got into the business a little bit differently, sort of a circuitous path, starting with glee clubs and, citywide choirs and that kind of thing, and eventually found my way into doing what I do today.
You know, one thing I remember, we were in school together, because, we go all the way back. And you were in a play, The Forest Prince, I think it was?
The Forest Prince, yeah.
What role did you play?
I played Václav. I was the Forest Prince, in fact.
That right there, that alone made you a huge star.
Well,
at school.
It's junior high school.
I know, but it's like we didn't have a whole bunch of people that could sing like you in junior high school. So then, after The Forest Prince, what do you remember or recall as your next project in music?
Well, again, doing plays, stuff like that, that was not considered to be like serious music.
Right.
I found it enjoyable, but the guys that I went to school with, you know them.
Yeah.
Nick, Nizam Smith, and some of the other guys in the neighborhood, Bill Sumler, Jackie Peoples, Raymond Wider. I'm mentioning some names of folks that came in and out of these groups that I was with. Eddie Jones.
Eddie, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So, and that was like a favorite pastime. Now, I didn't go right into the groups. There was a little bit of, we always had a little competition, and we spent our time just hanging out on street corners, doing harmony and that kind of thing. As a matter of fact, at some point in time, I think we might have even practiced in your house.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me get that straight. You guys practiced in our house a lot because I was in a singing group, and we were so in awe of the guys that were singing with you, that we would hope every day after school you guys would come by, because we learned so much. We called ourselves like the sister group to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys would come over, and I think, if I remember correctly, you had found your falsetto voice. You found it because it was like crystal. We'll
Never
get to
heard
that
of it.
word in a few minutes, because I'll tell you about the word crystal. But now, what was your first, after all of that you hooked up with the fellas, you'd been in a couple of school engagements, what was your first professional engagement with respect to music?
Well, I think the technical definition of professional means you get paid for it.
Well, yeah.
So it would have been with the Dreams. We did a gig. I think it was at the Pitts Motor Hotel.
Really?
Yeah. And a lot of folks who've been around DC a long time will remember the Pitts Motor Hotel.
Absolutely.
And didn't make a whole lot of money, but there was a pay. That's the first payment I remember. So I guess that's my first professional foray. I think I may have been 17, 18, somewhere around there.
We were so daggone proud of y'all. We were so, oh my God. It was like, and then, if I remember correctly, and you, of course, you can elaborate, Father's Children evolved from that era.
Well, Father's Children came several years later.
Okay.
You know, we had several people in the Dreams. Of course, it was Nick Smith. We had Jackie Peoples. At one point, we had Raymond was not in the Dreams, but
Okay.
Raymond was one of the original. He was like one of the first guys in the group. But that was before I even joined,
Right.
actually. But you had Nick Smith, myself. We had Jackie Peoples. We had Eddie Jones.
Eddie.
And then later we had Bill Sumler, Kadir,
Right.
or as he calls himself, Q today, who actually, formed the Dreams. So we performed many years using that name, the Dreams. And then we wandered into a neighborhood in the Adams Morgan community. It was called the People Center, Adams Morgan's People Center.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, there was this brother who had just got back from the NOM, and he was given some kind of grant to open up, to do something with this warehouse. So he took the warehouse and basically made it into a cultural center. So there were a lot of groups that were coming through.
Wow.
And, showing their wares, playing music, reciting poetry, the whole nine. And so at the time we were I guess you could call it a doo-wop group. In other words, we didn't play any real instruments, even though Nick did. He did play keyboard. But we weren't a band as such.
Right.
And through our affiliation with the People Center, and I think I have to give props to Norman or Salim Hilton.
Yes.
Salim Hilton.
Okay.
So Salim Hilton was, he sort of like ran that shop.
Right.
And, he sort of made some moves, and he said, you guys need to have some musicians. And we went around, we found the bass player, Malik. At one time before, we had a guy who played drums. His name was Rat. I don't even know Rat's real name, to be honest with you, but we called him Rat. And we didn't have a guitar player, and the guy was here from, I think he was from Ohio, Ty Woods. So Ty Woods, the guitar
A guitar player.
guitar player later
my
had
God.
a hit years later.
Right.
Was actually being produced by, I think, Kenny Rogers at the time.
Okay.
Anyway, so he was like the first guitar player. We ended up, mixing. Sorry, Rad, if you're listening. And we ended up getting one of the guys that actually was from the neighborhood, but who had been away for many, many years. He was living in Germany. That would be Sadiq, who was the drummer. Or
Yeah, I
Zachary
remember
Long.
Sadiq. Yeah.
So anyway, so that's how you know, I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot of details, but that's in a nutshell sort of how Father's Children came together as a self-contained act, meaning that, you know, everybody tried to play something. Now, I didn't play an instrument at the time. I was a percussion guy, you know, I cowbell or whatever I could pick my hands up on or whatever.
Wait a minute, let's get that straight. You may have played the cowbell, but you were the singer in the group too.
Well, see, where everybody, all of us, the so-called dreams at the time, were all singers.
Right.
And when we had the experience at the People's Center, we moved from being a so-called, you know, boys band, doo-wop group, whatever you want to call it, to being a self-contained act, much like, you know, War or Earth, Wind, and Fire, you know, that kind of thing. So, so that would be, I would say, the beginning.
Okay.
You know, the genesis of Father's Children during that time.